now that we're on that, I do want to talk about a video that you had put up about me a while ago about how much money I make.
Okay.
And you tried to estimate it in a very analytical way. Some parts you were close on, some parts you were off on. I don't mind the video. It has raised interest in me from some previous girlfriends.
I hadn't considered that possibility.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't mind that video in that sense, but I would say to you that it is the wrong question to ask about anybody. And we see this today, this backlash against Elon Musk, this backlash against Jeff Bezos for flying off into space. The question, how much does somebody make, I think is secondary to how much value does somebody create. And of that value they create, how much do they extract for themselves? So you can come up with what's called a greed ratio. So let's say that I created a pill that will extend your life for 100 years. You'll never age. You'll stay exactly where you are for 100 years. And I decide that I'm going to sell it for $1.
Okay.
Clearly, I'm not a greedy person.
Yeah.
Clearly not greedy at all. I'm delivering far more value than I'm extracting, but I would be a billionaire. Now, because I'm a billionaire at the aggregate level, I would be seen as being greedy. And I think we focus too much on people's wealth and how much they have, and we forget about how much value they create. That if you look at at some businesses and the price they charge for the products they deliver, they extract far more value than they deliver. So their greed factor would be significantly higher than Jeff Bezos, for example. What has he done? Think of the value he's created. His stock is being held in pension funds and growth funds and mutual funds around the world. So he's delivered a lot of value for shareholders. The creation of the EPUB and the Kindle and the ebook has created a whole industry of self-authorship, of authors who never would have ever been published before.
Right. Right.
And people who read those books, who are getting joy out of those books, that never would have laid eyes on those words before, because the publishing industry determined what you could read, not democracy. So when we look at how much value he has extracted versus how much value he's created, this is not a greedy man at all. So if, going back to the video on me of how much, I may or may not be making, our price is set such that we extract far less value than we deliver. We pay our staff a living wage, not minimum, even for jobs where we only need to pay a minimum wage. We give in our community quite considerably, well over $100,000 a year. So, and my tax rate's 53%. So I take everything, whatever's left over, I make a big 53% donation to our social cause, which is, Canada and Ontario. Mm-hmm. So when you look at what I have left over versus the value I create, what would it matter if I had $1 billion?
Right.
The measure is, I think the appropriate measure is a measure of someone's greed, not a measure of someone's wealth. And you can have very wealthy people who are not greedy at all.
I think the comments on the video were either one way or the other. Many people thought it was a good analytical approach towards trying to estimate something like that, and other people said, "Why are you even asking this? Don't worry about his information." And I think that group of people probably thought that I was asking the question in order to place some type of blame, which certainly there are people out there who would place a high amount of blame to anyone who earns any amount of money more than they do in some cases. But no, I think it's a good YouTube algorithm, because there are a lot of videos out there about how much does Warren Buffett or Elon Musk make, or this or that, and you're the most prominent figure amongst the CFA community. But I totally understand what you're saying, and maybe that could be a future topic. How much value does this or that provide? Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I think that the society would be a lot better off, and a lot more people, especially politicians, would be a lot better off if instead of ranking people based on how much income they have and how much wealth, start ranking them based on how much value they create for society, and you may get a completely different ranking altogether. where these people may on a greed index may be at the very bottom of greed.
And you might uncover some Mother Teresa type figures that would then have a certain platform with which they could, spread their type of word, because on a purely profit based approach, that type of person doesn't end up in the spotlight whatsoever.